Dr. Stevens's needle sank into my ear, and for the first time in 12 months, I heard the beating of my own heart. "Linda, can you hear me?" His voice sounded like celestial music after a year of absolute silence. Immediately, I began planning the most beautiful surprise for my daughter, Ashley. I would reveal my recovery at my 53rd birthday party in just 5 days. But what I heard in the days leading up to it shattered my world more than any accident ever could. Comment your city below and subscribe to join our global community. Enjoy the story. Let me tell you how I got here, because this story begins with blood, broken glass, and the worst decision I could have ever made in my life. Exactly 1 year and 2 weeks ago, I was leaving the headquarters of Miller Textiles, the company my late husband Edward had built from scratch, and that I now ran alongside Ashley. It was 9 p.m., raining cats and dogs, and I was in a rush to get home. Ashley had insisted I drive the new Mercedes. "Just so you get used to it, Mom," she'd said. But I always preferred my old Toyota. That night, just to please her, I took the keys to the Mercedes. The truck that ran the red light didn't have its headlights on. The last thing I remember is the sound of metal twisting and my head slamming against something very hard. I woke up 3 days later in the hospital with Ashley crying by my side and Dr. Garrett explaining that I had suffered severe trauma to the inner ear. The hearing might return, he told me, or it might never come back. During the first few months, Ashley was an angel. She moved temporarily into my house, hired nurses, and took care of everything at the company. "Don't worry about anything, Mom," she wrote on little sticky notes, because that was how we communicated. "I'll take charge of everything until you recover completely." And boy, did she take charge. With an efficiency that surprised me, Ashley assumed my position as CEO of Miller Textiles. The employees respected her, the clients accepted her quickly, and the numbers remained good. So good that when I hit the 6-month mark of being deaf, I suggested she keep running the company permanently. "You have a natural talent," I wrote to her. "Your father would be proud." What I didn't know was that my angel had turned into a demon. Dr. Stevens had been clear. The experimental surgery was risky, but it was my only chance to regain my hearing. "If it works," he had explained, "the recovery will be gradual. First, loud sounds, then conversations, finally whispers." What he didn't tell me is that I could also pretend to still be deaf while secretly listening to everything, and that ability to hear without anyone knowing saved my life. During the first 2 days after the surgery, I pretended nothing had changed. Ashley continued writing notes, using hand signs, treating me as if I were the same fragile woman she had cared for over the months. But when she left my room, or thought I was asleep, I began to hear things that froze my blood. "She's been recovering for too long," I heard Ashley telling someone on the phone the second night. "At this rate, she's going to want to return to the company, and that cannot happen." Return to my company? The company my husband founded? The company of which I was the rightful owner? But that was just the beginning. The next day, feigning sleep on the living room sofa, I overheard a conversation that changed everything forever. Chapter 2. "Rick, we need to talk," I heard Ashley's voice from the kitchen. I didn't know any Rick, and by my daughter's intimate tone, it was obvious this man meant more than just a simple employee. I kept my eyes closed, breathing deeply to simulate sleep. During 12 months of silence, I had perfected the art of appearing unconscious when people thought I couldn't hear them. "How are this month's numbers?" The man's voice was deep, authoritative. He definitely wasn't any employee of Miller Textiles that I remembered. "Better than expected," Ashley replied with a satisfaction that felt strange to me. "With Mom out of circulation, I've had total freedom to reorganize operations." Reorganize? What did that mean? During all these months, Ashley had shown me reports indicating that everything remained the same. The same clients, the same vendors, the same profitability. If she had reorganized something, why hadn't she told me? Excellent. And the money? I already wired another $200,000 to the account in the Cayman Islands. I've been skimming from the reserve accounts that Mom only checked once a year. That gives us a total of $1.8 million. My heart stopped. $1.8 million. In an account in the Cayman Islands? My daughter had been systematically stealing from the company for months. Perfect baby. The word baby confirmed my suspicions. This Rick wasn't just a business partner, he was Ashley's lover. How much do you think we can get out before your mother notices? Ashley laughed. A cold laugh I had never heard from her. Rick, my mother isn't going to notice anything. Have you seen her? She lost all her confidence after the accident. Even if she gets her hearing back, she's already so dependent on me that she'll never question my decisions. But eventually, she'll want to review the books. By the time that happens, we'll have drained everything we can and be living in Costa Rica. Besides, Ashley lowered her voice, I have a very generous insurance policy in my mother's name, $1.5 million if something happens to her. The air escaped my lungs. My own daughter was not only robbing me, but apparently planning to kill me. Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? Rick's voice held a dangerous tone. I'm not suggesting anything, Ashley replied quickly. I'm just saying that at her age, with the medication she's taking for depression, accidents can happen, especially if someone accidentally gives her an extra dose of her pills. For 12 months, I had blindly trusted Ashley to administer my medications. For 12 months, I had taken everything she gave me without question. For 12 months, my own daughter had held the perfect power to slowly poison me. You're brilliant, Rick murmured. But we have to be careful. If there's an investigation, there won't be an investigation. I've been telling Dr. Harris that Mom has had severe depressive episodes since the accident. My contact at the hospital can add notes about suicidal ideation to her medical file. An accidental overdose of antidepressants in a 53-year-old woman who has been struggling with suicidal thoughts. The doctors are going to sign the death certificate without asking questions. Suicidal thoughts? When had I ever spoken of suicidal thoughts? I had never contemplated taking my own life, not even in the darkest moments after the accident. And then I understood. Ashley had been manipulating my medical consultations too, with help from someone at the hospital. She had built the perfect stage for my accidental death. When? Asked Rick. After her birthday. It has to look normal. We'll celebrate, invite some friends, and then, accident. By next Monday, I'll be signing as the sole heir of Miller Textiles. I heard footsteps approaching the living room and squeezed my eyes shut tighter, controlling my breathing. Ashley leaned over me, and I felt her breath on my cheek. Sleep tight, Mom, she whispered with a fake tenderness that I now recognized as pure theater. Very soon, all of this will be over. When I heard them leave the house, I opened my eyes, and for the first time in 12 months, I cried in complete silence. But not from sadness, from a fury so pure and burning, it almost consumed me from the inside. My daughter had made the biggest mistake of her life. She had underestimated the woman who had raised her. Chapter 3. That night, I didn't sleep a wink. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, planning my next move. Ashley thought she had a broken, dependent woman. What she had was a businesswoman who had helped build a $20 million empire and who was now wide awake and furious. At 6 a.m., when Ashley entered my room with my morning medicine and breakfast, I already had a plan. Good morning, Mom, she wrote in her notebook. How are you feeling? I smiled weakly and nodded, taking the pills she extended to me. But this time, instead of swallowing them, I kept them under my tongue until she left the room. Then I spit them out and stored them in a small jar I had hidden in my nightstand. If Ashley was planning to poison me gradually, those pills were going to be crucial evidence. During the day, I continued with my act as a deaf and helpless woman, but mentally, I was cataloging everything. Ashley's phone conversations, her schedule, the times she left the house, when she returned. And above all, waiting for the opportunity to get to know this Rick character better. I didn't have to wait long. That afternoon, feigning sleep on the sofa again, I heard a car arrive. Ashley ran to open the door, and for the first time, I could clearly hear the voice of my future killer. How is the Sleeping Beauty? Rick asked with sarcasm. Same as always. Lost in her silent world, Ashley replied. Come on, I want to show you something. I followed them mentally as they headed toward Edward's study, the home office that had been the heart of our house when he was alive. I heard drawers opening, papers moving. These are all the legal documents, Ashley explained. Will, insurance policies, properties. When she dies, everything passes automatically to me. Are you sure there are no other heirs, family? Mom was an only child, and Dad's family never really accepted her. After Dad's funeral, I cut contact with everyone. Officially, I am her only family. What a liar. Edward's family adored me, especially his brother Michael, who lived in Chicago. Ashley had cut contact with them precisely to isolate me perfectly. And the company employees? Could anyone ask difficult questions? I've been gradually replacing anyone who had loyalty to Mom. The new employees only know me as CEO. To them, Mom is just an ex-boss who retired after her accident. My blood boiled. For 20 years, I had built personal relationships with every employee at Miller Textiles. I knew their families. I had paid for medical treatments out of my own pocket when necessary. I had been a godmother at baptisms and weddings. And now, Ashley had systematically erased my presence from the company that was my life. "You're a genius," Rick murmured. "But I have to ask you, don't you feel anything? She is your mother." There was a long pause. For a moment, I felt a tiny hope that my daughter would show some trace of conscience. "Rick, have you seen how she's been living since Dad died? Depressed, lost, dependent. Even before the accident, she wasn't the strong woman she once was. In a way, I'm doing her a favor. I'm freeing her from a life that isn't worth living anymore." And there died any hope of redemption I might have held for Ashley. "Besides," she continued, "Dad built this empire for his family. I am his family. Mom is just a temporary obstacle." I heard footsteps approaching the living room again, so I closed my eyes and regulated my breathing. But this time, when Ashley leaned in to verify I was sleeping, I cracked one eye open slightly. For the first time in 12 months, I saw the face of the man planning to kill me, Rick Sanders. I recognized him immediately. He had been an accountant at Miller Textiles 3 years ago. Edward had fired him for irregularities in the books. A thin man, about 40 years old, with cold eyes and a smile that never reached his eyes. Now it all made sense. Rick had returned to take revenge on the family that ruined his career, and he had seduced my own daughter to do it. "When was the last time she ate?" I heard him ask. "This morning, but just a little. Lately, she doesn't have much of an appetite." Of course I didn't have an appetite. She had probably been slowly poisoning me for months with something that suppressed my hunger and energy. Perfect. Between the lack of appetite and the medications, she's already physically weak. That will make the overdose look more natural. "Yes, but we have to wait until after the birthday. I've invited the few friends she has left so they can see she was normal before the accident." I heard them walking away toward the kitchen, and for the first time in months, I smiled. A smile that would have terrified Ashley if she could have seen it. My dear daughter had made several fatal mistakes. First, she had underestimated my intelligence. Second, she had revealed her entire hand. And third, she had forgotten that I knew all the secrets of Miller Textiles, including some that not even Edward had known. It was time to remind Ashley Miller, who had taught her father everything he knew about business. Chapter 4. The next day, while Ashley went out to what I knew were her meetings with Rick to plan my death, I put the first phase of my counterattack into motion. Pretending to be asleep, I waited until I heard her car pull away. Then I got up and went directly to Edward's study. If Ashley thought she had found all the important documents, she was very mistaken. During 25 years of marriage, Edward and I had maintained a secret safe behind the bookshelf. Not even Ashley knew of its existence. Inside, we kept copies of documents, emergency cash, and something much more valuable, the keys to a private office Edward had kept downtown. When Edward died 3 years ago, I never mentioned that office to Ashley. I had been paying the rent automatically from a separate bank account that Ashley didn't know about. In that office, Edward had kept the true books of Miller Textiles, the ones showing operations we never officially declared. Don't misunderstand me. They weren't illegal operations. They were smart, legal investments that Edward preferred to keep private to avoid unnecessary taxes and protect the family assets from any future legal issues. Ashley believed Miller Textiles was worth approximately $5 million. The reality was that with the secret investments, hidden properties, and offshore bank accounts that only Edward and I knew about, the real value was nearly $20 million. My plan was simple. If Ashley wanted to play the game of secret accounts and stolen money, I was going to teach her how the game was really played. I dressed carefully, took the keys, and left the house alone for the first time in 12 months. I called a taxi and gave the address of an office building in Charlotte that Ashley had never visited. The office was exactly as Edward had left it: mahogany desk, password-protected computer, and 3 filing cabinets full of documents representing the true fortune of the Miller family. I sat in Edward's chair, and for the first time since his death, I felt like the businesswoman I had been. I opened the computer, typed the password only I knew, and began to review the accounts. What I found gave me an advantage Ashley could never have imagined. During the last year, while I was incapacitated, Ashley had been stealing money from the official accounts of Miller Textiles. But what she didn't know is that those accounts only contained the day-to-day operational funds. The real treasure was in investments that matured automatically every 3 months. In 2 weeks, exactly 8 days after my birthday, $3.5 million was going to be transferred automatically to the main Miller Textiles account. Ashley had no idea that money was coming, and there was my perfect opportunity. I opened the second filing cabinet and found what I was looking for: contacts for private investigators Edward had occasionally used to vet employees and business partners. One of them, Alex Ross, had worked with us several times and had an impeccable reputation. I dialed his number from the office phone. "Mr. Ross, this is Linda Miller. I need to hire your services. Completely confidential." "Mrs. Miller?" His surprise was evident. "I didn't know you had, that you had recovered your hearing." "It's a long story, Mr. Ross, but I need you to investigate 2 people without them finding out: my own daughter and a man named Rick Sanders." I explained the basic situation without going into detail about the murder plot. I only told him I suspected Ashley was embezzling funds, and I needed solid evidence. "Of course, Mrs. Miller. How fast do you need the results?" "By the end of this week. And Mr. Ross, it is crucial that this remains between us. If my daughter finds out I'm investigating her, she could do something reckless." "Understood perfectly. I'll have full reports by Friday." After hanging up, I opened the third filing cabinet and found another surprise Edward had prepared: legal documents giving full power of attorney over all Miller Textiles accounts to a third person in case something happened to me. That third person wasn't Ashley. It was Michael Miller, Edward's brother living in Chicago. Edward had prepared these documents after Ashley began showing signs of financial irresponsibility in her first years working at the company. He had already noticed her tendency to spend more than she earned and had taken legal precautions. I smiled with genuine joy for the first time in months. My husband had been sharper than I had given him credit for. I took photos of all the important documents with my cell phone and stored physical copies in my purse. Then I returned home, arriving barely 20 minutes before Ashley came back. When I heard her car in the driveway, I was already back in my position on the sofa, pretending to sleep. "Hi, Mom," she whispered, leaning down to kiss my forehead. "Have you been sleeping all day?" I nodded weakly, keeping my eyes closed, but internally, I was calculating exactly how many days Ashley had left before she discovered she had gravely underestimated her mother. Ashley Miller was about to learn the most expensive lesson of her life. Chapter 5. On Friday morning, while Ashley was on what she believed were her morning rounds at the company, I received the call from Alex Ross. "Mrs. Miller, I have the information you requested. Can we meet at the private office?" An hour later, I was sitting across from Alex with a folder full of evidence that surpassed even my worst suspicions. "Your daughter and Rick Sanders have been working together for almost 2 years, Alex began. "The relationship started 6 months before your accident." My blood ran cold. "Are you saying the accident wasn't a coincidence?" "I can't prove they caused it directly, but the circumstances are suspicious. Rick had gambling debts of nearly $500,000. Ashley had credit card debt of $150,000. Both needed money desperately." Alex opened the folder and showed me photos of Ashley and Rick together in hotels, expensive restaurants, and trips they had taken during the months of my recovery. "But here's the most interesting part," he continued. "Rick isn't just her lover. He is a professional criminal accountant. He has worked with 3 different families in similar schemes: infiltrate family businesses, seduce heirs, and systematically steal until he can disappear with the money. Other families? What happened to the previous victims?" Alex showed me newspaper clippings. The Harris family in Dallas, 2018. The patriarch died in a domestic accident after the heir had transferred nearly $2 million to offshore accounts. The Castle family in Boston, 2020. The matriarch suffered an accidental overdose of heart medication. My stomach churned. Rick was a serial killer, and my daughter was his next accomplice. Does the police know about this? The investigations never prospered. Rick is extremely careful. He always uses the heirs as a shield, never appears directly on legal documents, and always disappears before anyone can connect the dots. But this time will be different, I murmured. Pardon me, ma'am. This time he isn't dealing with an innocent victim, Mr. Ross. This time he's dealing with me. I explained my plan. Alex listened to me, with his eyes growing wider. Mrs. Miller, that is extremely dangerous. If they realize you can hear, they won't realize. I've been faking it for 12 months. I can fake it for 5 more days. That afternoon, when Ashley returned home, she found me in my usual position on the sofa, but this time I had prepared a little surprise. "Mom, how are you feeling?" she wrote in her notebook. Instead of nodding as always, I wrote a better answer. "I think my hearing is coming back a little." Yesterday I heard a strange sound. I saw the color drain from her face. What kind of sound? Like voices very far away. Probably my imagination. Ashley exchanged a nervous glance with Rick, who had appeared in the living room doorway. That's wonderful, Mom. Maybe we should call the doctor?" "No," I wrote. "I want to be sure before getting my hopes up." That night, I heard the most revealing conversation yet. "We have to speed up the plan," Rick whispered urgently. "If her hearing is coming back..." "Calm down," Ashley replied. "Even if she can hear a little, she's still the same broken, dependent woman. And besides, we can't change the date anymore. I already sent the invitations for her birthday on Sunday. Invitations to her country club friends, some ex-employees, people who are going to testify that she was normal before the accident. It's important that when she dies on Monday, everyone remembers she seemed to be improving. You are diabolically smart. I learned from the best. My mother taught me that in business, planning is everything. If she only knew how true that was." During the next 2 days, Ashley and Rick finalized their plan while I finalized mine. They planned to poison me Monday night with an overdose of my meds. I planned something much more elegant. On Sunday morning, the day of my birthday, Ashley entered my room with a large bouquet of flowers and a smile that would have fooled anyone who didn't know her true nature. "Happy birthday, Mom," she wrote. "Today is going to be a very special day." I smiled and nodded, feigning the same innocent gratitude I had shown for 12 months. But my mind was replaying the conversation I had the day before with Michael Miller in Chicago. "Linda, are you completely sure about this?" he had asked when I explained the situation. "Michael, Edward left me the tools to protect myself. It's time to use them. I'll be on a flight tonight. I'll get there just in time." I looked at Ashley arranging the flowers in a vase beside my bed, and for the first time in a year, I didn't feel pain over my daughter's betrayal. I felt excitement. Tonight, at my birthday party with all her guests as witnesses, Ashley was going to discover that she had spent 12 months planning the murder of the wrong woman. And I couldn't wait to see the look on her face when she realized that the real Linda Miller had been waiting for this exact moment for months. Chapter 6. The party started at 6 p.m., with the punctuality typical of the ladies of my generation. Carol Vance, my old partner from the book club, was the first to arrive, followed by Esther Turner and Mary Ellen Castle, employees of Miller Textiles whom I had known for over 15 years. Ashley had done a perfect job organizing the gathering. She had invited exactly the type of people who could testify about my mental state before the accident. Respectable, observant women who had known me for years. "Linda looks so good," I heard them comment while I pretended to concentrate on reading their lips. "Considering everything that's happened, she's very calm." Ashley acted like the perfect daughter, translating conversations, making sure I was comfortable, explaining to the guests how hard my recovery had been. "Mom has been so brave," she told Carol while stroking my hair with fake tenderness. "There are days she doesn't want to get out of bed, but she always tries to stay positive for me." Days I didn't want to get out of bed? I had never had a single day of real depression. Ashley was building the perfect narrative for my future death by depressive overdose. Rick had arrived an hour before the party, introducing himself as a friend of Ashley's who came to help with the celebration. The ladies had accepted him immediately, especially when he started charming Mary Ellen with questions about her grandchildren. He was a consummate actor, I have to admit. If I didn't know he was a serial killer, I would have thought he was a lovely man. At 7:30, when all the guests were gathered in the living room drinking tea and eating the cake Ashley had ordered, the moment I had been waiting 5 days for arrived. Michael Miller knocked on the door. Ashley ran to open it, and I could see her confusion when she found a 60-year-old man in an elegant suit standing in my entryway. "Good evening. I'm Michael Miller, Edward's brother." He introduced himself with the clear, authoritative voice I remembered. "I came for Linda's birthday." Ashley's face turned into a mask of controlled shock. "Uncle Michael? I didn't know you were coming. I didn't call. I wanted it to be a surprise." Michael entered the living room, and immediately all the ladies stood up to greet him. They remembered him from family events during Edward's and my marriage. "Michael!" exclaimed Carol. "What a wonderful surprise for Linda." Ashley was visibly nervous but couldn't do anything without seeming rude in front of the guests. Michael approached where I was sitting and leaned down to kiss me on the cheek. "Happy birthday, sister-in-law," he murmured, loud enough for others to hear, but added in a barely audible whisper, "It's time." I nodded almost imperceptibly and made a decision I had been planning for 5 days. I stood up from the sofa, walked to the center of the room where everyone could see me, and with the clearest, strongest voice I had used in 12 months, said, "Ladies, I want to thank you for coming to celebrate my birthday with me." The silence that followed was absolute. All conversations stopped instantly. Carol dropped her teacup. Mary Ellen went pale. Esther stood with her mouth open. But the expression I enjoyed the most was Ashley's. Her face went from shock to pure terror in less than 2 seconds. "Linda?" Carol whispered. You can hear?" "Perfectly," I replied, smiling sweetly. "My hearing returned 5 days ago thanks to Dr. Stevens' surgery. I wanted to surprise you all during my birthday party." The ladies erupted in exclamations of joy, hugging me, congratulating me, commenting on the miracle. Ashley stayed in the background, completely paralyzed, while Rick had discreetly disappeared toward the kitchen. "But Linda," Mary Ellen said, "why didn't you tell us sooner? Did Ashley know?" I looked directly at my daughter, who looked like she was going to vomit. "No, Ashley didn't know. I wanted to keep it a secret until today. Although," I added with a smile that never reached my eyes, "I have heard some very interesting conversations during these 5 days." The color drained completely from Ashley's face. Rick reappeared in the living room entrance, and I could see he had been on the phone. "In fact," I continued, "there are so many things I've learned lately that I think it's time to share some surprises with all of you." Michael approached and put a protective hand on my shoulder. "Linda, are you sure you want to do this now?" "Completely sure, Michael. After all, what better time to reveal the truth than at a birthday party surrounded by dear friends?" Ashley finally found her voice. "Mom, maybe we should talk in private." "Oh, no, sweetheart," I replied with the most venomous sweetness I could muster. "I think our guests are going to find this conversation absolutely fascinating." Rick had started moving toward the back door, but Michael blocked his path subtly. "Especially," I continued, addressing the ladies who watched me with growing confusion, because my own daughter and her lover have been planning to murder me. This time, Carol really did drop the teacup, and it shattered against the marble floor. Chapter 7. The sound of porcelain shattering against the floor was like a signal. Ashley finally snapped out of her shock and went into damage control mode. "Mom, you're confused," she said with a trembling voice, trying to sound authoritative. "You've been taking a lot of medication. Maybe the surgery affected your—" "My what, Ashley? My memory? My ability to reason?" I interrupted her, keeping my voice calm but lethal. "Because my memory is perfectly clear, especially of the conversation you had with Rick on Tuesday night about accelerating my death to Monday." The guests looked at one another with growing alarm. Mary Ellen had put a hand over her heart. Carol seemed to be in shock. "Linda," Michael intervened softly, "maybe the ladies would prefer not to." "No," I said firmly. "The ladies are going to stay. They are going to hear everything, because when this is over, they are going to be very important witnesses." Rick had started moving toward the back door again, but he stopped when Michael spoke. "Mr. Sanders, I suggest you stay. I've already spoken with some people who are very interested in meeting you." For the first time, I saw real fear in Rick's eyes. "Ashley," I continued, "do you want to explain to our friends about the account in the Cayman Islands? Or do you prefer I tell them about the $1.5 million life insurance policy you took out in my name without my knowledge?" Ashley had lost all color. "Mom, I don't know what you're talking about." "No? Then you also don't know about the $200,000 you transferred last week, or about the plan to make me take an accidental overdose of antidepressants tomorrow night? Esther stood up abruptly. Linda, if this is true, it is true, confirmed Michael. In fact, I have some documents here that will prove very informative for all of you. Michael opened a briefcase he had brought and pulled out a thick folder. Ladies, allow me to present photographic evidence of Mr. Rick Sanders' work with the Harrison Castle families. He began passing around photographs that Alex Ross had obtained, photos of Rick with other women, copies of newspaper articles about accidental deaths, bank documents. Carol took one of the photos with trembling hands. This man has killed before? At least 6 times that we can prove, Michael replied. His method is always the same: seduce the heir, steal systematically, and then kill the patriarch or matriarch of the family. Rick finally spoke, his voice tense. This is ridiculous. You can't prove anything. We can't? I walked over to my purse and pulled out the small jar where I had been storing the pills Ashley gave me every morning. These are the vitamins my daughter has been giving me for weeks. Would you like us to analyze them, Rick? The look of panic on his face told me everything I needed to know. Besides, I continued, I have recordings. I lied completely, but my performance was perfect. Both Ashley and Rick froze. During the last 5 days since I regained my hearing, I've been recording your conversations. Every plan, every detail, every comment about how you were going to murder me. Ashley finally exploded. You're lying. You have nothing. Am I lying, Ashley? Like when you told your contact at the hospital to add notes about my supposed suicidal thoughts? Like when you created a fake medical history to build a record of severe depression? Like when you told Rick my death would be easy to explain because I already had a record of mental instability? Every word I said was like a slap in the face. Ashley physically recoiled with every accusation. Or maybe, I added, turning toward Rick, I'm lying like when you told her that an overdose of strong sedatives mixed with other medications in a 3-year-old woman with a suicidal history would be impossible to investigate? Rick had started sweating profusely. Linda, you don't understand the situation. I understand the situation perfectly, Rick. I understand you have debts of $500,000 with very dangerous people. I understand Ashley has credit card debts of $150,000. I understand both of you saw my accident as the perfect opportunity to solve your financial problems by killing me. Mary Ellen stood up, shaking. Linda, we have to call the police. They are already on their way, Michael replied calmly, checking his watch. They should be arriving at any moment. As if coordinated, we heard sirens approaching the house. Ashley went into total panic. They can't arrest us. We didn't do anything. She's alive. Conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, embezzlement, hospital bribery. Michael listed calmly. Oh, and there are also federal charges for illegal international wire transfers. Rick ran toward the back door, but stopped when he saw police uniforms surrounding the house at all exits. Besides, I added with the most satisfying smile of my life, there is something neither of you knew about Miller Textiles. Ashley looked at me with desperate eyes. What? That Edward never fully trusted you, sweetie, and that I'm not the helpless woman you thought I was either. Chapter 8. The police officers entered the house with the efficient professionalism I had coordinated with Michael during our secret phone conversations. The lead detective, Carl Morrison, greeted Michael as if they were old friends. Mrs. Miller, he said respectfully, I understand you have evidence of a conspiracy against your life. More than evidence, detective, I replied. I have full confessions. Ashley had found a second wind of desperate energy. This is ridiculous. My mother is obviously confused. She's been taking heavy medication for months. Are you referring to these medications? I pulled out the jar with the pills I had been pretending to take, because it turns out they aren't the antidepressants Dr. Harris prescribed me. I handed the jar to Detective Morrison. According to my preliminary investigations, these pills contain a combination of strong sedatives mixed with toxic substances in very small doses. Ashley's face turned into a mask of pure horror. Strong sedatives mixed with toxins, I continued conversationally. It's perfect for gradual poisoning because it causes symptoms that look like normal aging. Fatigue, loss of appetite, mild mental confusion. In small doses over months, it weakens the system without being detected in routine blood tests. Carol had started crying silently. Mary Ellen had both hands over her mouth, looking at me with horror. But Ashley made a mistake, I continued. She trusted Rick to get the mixture right. And Rick is greedier than he is smart. He used too much, too fast. If he had been more patient, it probably would have worked. "You're making all this up," screamed Rick. "You have no proof." Michael opened a second folder. "Are you referring to these proofs?" He pulled out a series of photographs showing Rick buying chemicals at an agricultural supply store, bank transfers between secret accounts, and even photos of him and Ashley kissing passionately at a hotel while I was supposedly dying at home. "Alex Ross is very thorough," I commented. "He also discovered something interesting about your past, Rick." Detective Morrison took the photos and studied the evidence. "Mr. Sanders, I have arrest warrants for similar charges in Dallas and Boston. You've been evading authorities for 3 years." Rick attempted a charming smile that had worked on so many victims. "Detective, I think there is a huge misunderstanding here." "There is no misunderstanding," I interrupted. "The confusion is what you caused in the minds of your previous victims before killing them." Ashley had started shaking uncontrollably. "Mom, please, can we fix this? I can pay back the money." "What money, Ashley? The $200,000 you already spent on trips and hotels with Rick? Or are you referring to the $3 million you planned to steal from Edward's secret accounts?" Her expression confirmed she had no idea I knew about the secret accounts. "Ah, you didn't know about those accounts, right?" I smiled sweetly. "During all these months you were running Miller Textiles, you only had access to the operational accounts. Edward kept the real investments, the properties, the true assets, separate." Michael nodded. "Your father never fully trusted your financial judgment, Ashley. He and Linda always knew you were impulsive with money." "That's not possible," whispered Ashley. "I checked all the documents." "You checked the documents we allowed you to check," Michael corrected. "The real documents are in an office you never knew existed, under the control of trusts you never could have found." Detective Morrison had started taking notes. "Mrs. Miller, do you want to press charges for attempted murder?" "Absolutely. Against both of them." Rick made one last desperate attempt. "This is a setup. Linda Miller set this all up to get revenge." "Revenge for what, Rick?" I asked with genuine curiosity. "For my own daughter trying to kill me? For a fired accountant coming back to steal my company? For planning to poison me slowly for months?" The detective looked at Rick with disgust. "Mr. Sanders, you have the right to remain silent." As he began reading the rights, Ashley did something I hadn't expected. She lunged at me, screaming, "This is all your fault. You've always been controlling. You never let me live my own life." Michael and the detective shielded me, but not before Ashley managed to grab my blouse and scream in my face. "I hate you! I've hated you for years! I wish you had died in that accident!" And there it was, the real truth that had been hidden behind all the manipulation and lies. My daughter hadn't betrayed me just for money. She had betrayed me because she genuinely hated me. For the first time in this horrible ordeal, I felt true emotional pain. Chapter 9. The silence that followed Ashley's confession of hate was broken by a voice I hadn't heard in 3 years. "Ashley Miller, you were always a spoiled brat." We all turned toward the front door, where an elegant woman of about 70 stood with the aristocratic bearing I remembered perfectly. Eleanor Miller, Edward's mother. The woman Ashley had claimed hated me and had cut contact with our family after the funeral. "Grandma," whispered Ashley, her arrogance vanishing instantly. "Don't call me Grandma," Eleanor replied with ice in her voice. "A granddaughter doesn't try to murder the woman her grandson loved more than his own life." Michael smiled. "Linda, let me introduce you to your secret accomplice. Mrs. Eleanor has been monitoring Ashley's activities for months." Eleanor walked up to me and took my hands with a warmth that brought tears to my eyes. "My dear, when Michael told me what was happening, I knew I had to act. Edward made me promise I would protect you if anything ever happened to you." But Ashley said you blamed me for Edward's death." Eleanor laughed bitterly. "Ashley has been feeding you lies for 3 years, Linda. We never blamed you for anything. Edward died of cancer, not because of you. If anything, we admired you for caring for him so devotedly until the end." Ashley had started backing toward the wall as if she wanted to disappear. "In fact," Eleanor continued, "the Miller family has some things to explain about Edward's true assets." Michael opened a third folder, this one much thicker than the previous ones. "Linda, there is something Edward didn't tell you before he died because he didn't want to worry you during his illness. Miller Textiles isn't worth $5 million as you believed, nor $20 million as you discovered in the secret office. My heart stopped. What do you mean? Edward had been investing in textile technology for the last 10 years of his life. Patents, innovations, international contracts. Michael looked at me with an incredible smile. Linda, Miller Textiles is worth $67 million. The world began to spin around me. Ashley had discovered some clues about the additional investments, Eleanor continued. That's why she was so desperate to kill you quickly. If you had lived 6 months longer, you would have received automatic reports about the maturation of the main investments. $67 million, I repeated in shock. And that's just the conservative value, Michael added. With the biofabric patents Edward developed, the value could reach $100 million in the next 5 years. Ashley had started to hyperventilate. It's not possible. I checked everything. You checked what we allowed you to check, Eleanor repeated coldly. Edward knew since you were 18 that you were irresponsible with money. Did you really think he was going to give you access to a fortune of this magnitude? Detective Morrison had been listening to the entire conversation with growing fascination. Mrs. Miller, this significantly changes the scale of the crime. We are talking about conspiracy to steal tens of millions. Rick, who had been silent for several minutes, finally exploded. This is impossible. Ashley told me the company was barely worth a few million. She lied to me. Of course she lied to you, I replied, finding my voice again. Did you really think she was going to tell you the truth about something that important? Ashley lunged at Rick. You told me this would be easy. You told me no one would notice. You told me your mother was a stupid old woman with no resources. And there I was, witnessing the complete disintegration of their criminal alliance as they blamed each other. Enough, said Detective Morrison. You are both under arrest. Mrs. Miller, do you need medical attention? You've been poisoned for months. I'm fine, Detective, but I would like you to analyze those pills as quickly as possible. Eleanor approached and hugged me tightly. Linda, there is something else. Edward left a letter for you that was only to be delivered if something like this ever happened. She handed me a sealed envelope with my name in Edward's familiar handwriting. Read it tonight when you have privacy. It will explain many things you never knew. As the police arrested Ashley and Rick, my daughter screamed one last thing at me. This doesn't end here. I'm going to fight this in court. You're my mother. You have to support me. I looked her straight in the eyes, and for the first time in her life, she saw the true Linda Miller. Ashley, I don't have a daughter anymore. And as they took her away in handcuffs, I knew I had spoken the truth. But what I didn't know was that Edward's letter contained a final revelation that would help me understand exactly how I had reached this moment. Chapter 10. That night, after all the guests left, after they took Ashley and Rick away, after Michael and Eleanor helped me clean up the remains of the most surreal party of my life, I sat alone in Edward's study with the letter I had been waiting 3 years to read. My hands trembled as I broke the seal. My dearest Linda, it began with his careful handwriting. If you are reading this letter, it means Ashley tried to do exactly what I always feared she would do. I paused, breathing deeply. Edward had predicted our daughter's betrayal. During the last years of my life, I noticed worrying changes in Ashley. Her resentment toward you grew every day. She began making comments about inheriting what was hers long before I was sick. When my diagnosis was confirmed, I saw how her eyes shone when the doctors spoke of my life expectancy. Tears began to fall on the page, but I continued reading. Linda, my love, there is something I never told you because I didn't want to hurt you. Ashley came to see me 3 weeks before my death. She asked me directly if there was any way to speed up the process of my illness. When I asked her what she meant, she told me that both you and I were suffering unnecessarily and that maybe it was time to let go. My stomach churned. Ashley had suggested killing her own father. That day, I knew our daughter was dangerous. Not just greedy or irresponsible, but genuinely dangerous. I began immediately taking precautions to protect you after my death. The letter continued, explaining how Edward had systematically built legal and financial protections around me, anticipating that Ashley might try to hurt me. I also hired a private investigator to monitor her activities after my death. Alex Ross has orders to intervene if Ashley ever presents a real threat to your life. He has been watching over you these 3 years, Linda, even though you didn't know it. Alex had been working for Edward for 3 years. Everything that had seemed like my brilliant detective work had actually been my dead husband's protection plan. But Linda, the most important thing you need to know is this. I suspect Ashley might try to harm you in some way. I don't know exactly how, but I've seen the coldness in her eyes when she talks about you. I have instructed Alex to investigate any accident you might suffer after my death. The world stopped. Edward had suspected Ashley would hurt me without knowing exactly how. If something strange happens to you, Linda, it won't be an accident. Ashley is capable of terrible things, and you need to be prepared to defend yourself. The letter ended with specific instructions on how to access his secret accounts and a statement that made me cry for an hour. Linda, you are the strongest and smartest woman I have ever known. I know that when you read this, you will have already defeated Ashley and reclaimed your life. But I also know you will feel guilty for the mistakes you think you made as a mother. Don't feel guilty, my love. Some children are born with darkness in their hearts, no matter how much love they receive. Ashley chose her path, not us. The next day, I called Alex Ross. Mr. Ross, can you tell me exactly what you discovered about my car accident? There was a long pause. Mrs. Miller, after the accident, I investigated on your husband's orders. I found evidence that the brakes on the Mercedes were sabotaged. I also have video of a man tampering with your car the night before the accident. My heart stopped. Who was the man? The same mechanic Rick hired to help with his poisoning plan. Your daughter has been trying to kill you for more than a year. 3 days later, I was sitting in the district attorney's office with evidence that turned the charges from conspiracy and attempted murder into first-degree attempted murder. The trial lasted 2 months. Ashley was sentenced to 25 years without the possibility of parole. Rick received life imprisonment as a habitual offender. During the trial, Ashley never showed remorse. Even in her final statement, she blamed me for ruining her life and stealing her inheritance. On the day of her sentencing, I approached her one last time. Ashley, I want you to know that despite everything, I am sorry we reached this point. She looked at me with pure contempt. Go to hell, Linda. I wish you had died in that car. And that was the last word my daughter ever spoke to me. 6 months later, I was standing in the new headquarters of Miller Textiles, looking at the sign that read, "The Edward Miller Foundation for Victims of Family Violence." I had decided to convert half the company into a nonprofit organization that would help other women facing similar betrayals. Michael ran the remaining commercial operations. Eleanor had come to live with me so neither of us would be alone, and for the first time in 4 years, I felt genuinely happy. That afternoon, while reviewing scholarship applications for the foundation, my phone rang. Mrs. Miller, this is Detective Morrison. I have news about Ashley. My heart stopped. What kind of news? She was attacked in prison last night. She is in the hospital in critical condition. I hung up the phone and sat in silence for 15 minutes. Then I called Michael and told him I wouldn't be available for the rest of the day. I didn't go to the hospital. Ashley had made her choice over a year ago when she decided my life was worth less than her greed. Now she would have to face the consequences of that choice alone. That night, I stood on the balcony of my house with a glass of wine, looking at the garden Edward and I had planted together so many years ago. At 53, I had survived multiple murder attempts by my own daughter, reclaimed my company, discovered a fortune I never knew I had, regained my real family, and built a new life based on my own strength instead of betrayed love. And for the first time since Edward's death, I felt completely at peace.